All right, here we go, everybody. Clementine and the spring trip, and it's chapter 7. Chapter 7's a long one, so hang in there and just sit back and relax and listen to the story. And if you like it, hit subscribe. YouTube likes that. It just means that you want to hear more of me reading, and that'll be fun. So anyway, if you want to, hit subscribe. And here we go, chapter 7. All I'm going to say about Plymouth Rock is that they should rename it Plymouth Pebble. It is so small. Next, we got to go to the actual Plymouth plantation. We started with a Native American site. They were planting their garden, so it smelled really good there. Like dirt that was just waking up and things that wanted to grow. Corn and beans and squash, our guide told us. 5 seeds of each in every mound. 5 is a lucky number for the Wampanoags. For my family too, I thought to myself, remembering the Pentagon. Next, we lined up with our partners at the gates of the 17th century English village. The guide reminded us that everyone inside was an actor, pretending to be a real person who was in the Plymouth colony in 1627. They'll all be going about their everyday routines, she said, so feel free to just ask them any questions or help them with their chores, whatever you'd like to do. Even though Margaret was ahead of me in line, I saw her face when the guide said that. It looked as if what Margaret heard was, feel free to roll around in some garbage. She was shuddering as we filed inside. The first thing we passed was a pen full of pigs. Margaret had thrown her arms over her head and run down the road, but Olive and I stopped. The pigs didn't look like actors to me. They looked like real, live pigs. There were big ones, little ones, and even some little bitty baby piglets crawling over their mother. A pilgrim man in red, kind of balloony pants came over, and he tossed a big pail of scraps into the pen. The pigs got really excited about that, and a group of chickens came skidding over too. The way those chickens ruffled and clucked and bobbed their head over the scraps reminded me of my grandmother and her friends gathered around the refreshment table at bingo. Uh-oh. All right, so there's the actor, the man feeding the pigs and chickens at the Plymouth village. He's feeding them scraps. And some people, if you have pigs or chickens at home, you can feed them scraps from your table too. If you have a farm, you can feed them your leftovers. I laughed about that, about my grandmother. And one of the chickens raised his head to look. It left the flock and came over to investigate Olive and me. I'd never seen a real live chicken before, so I bent down to get a really good look. It was so pretty that it could have been a chicken-shaped sugar cookie, one that was all speckled with butterscotch sprinkles and had a red frosting mohawk on top of its head. "Hi, chicken," I said. "Nice hat." "That's its comb," Olive said. "Collarbone," in Olive language. There they are, Olive and Clementine, looking at the chicken. The chicken twirled around and pretended to be extremely busy studying some dirt. "Look, it's playing that game. I am not interested in you," I explained to Olive. I walked over to the fence, and there I began to admire the really pretty garden beyond it. "Pay no attention to it, and it will follow us. She will follow us, I corrected myself, because remembering that about chickens and roosters. And sure enough, the chicken did. She walked right over to my foot, as if my sneaker was just another piece of the road to her. I bent down again, and the chicken darted off as if she had suddenly realized she was late for a really important chicken meeting. Before I could follow her, Olive took my hand, and she pulled me down the village road behind her chaperone. The chaperones had all stopped in front of the little colony houses and were monitoring the groups going inside. I looked up and down the road to wave goodbye to my chicken, but I didn't see her. But halfway down the road, I did notice Margaret. She was standing all alone, with her head drooping down, and her hands were stuffed in her pockets. When Olive and I went inside, I understood Margaret was right. "Your floor is dirt," I told the pilgrim lady inside. which she already knew because she was sweeping it. "You're sweeping the dirt off of the dirt?" The Pilgrim lady stopped sweeping and stared at her floor for a minute. She looked really disappointed at what she saw. "My husband promised me a wooden floor like we had in England," she said with a sigh. "That was 7 years ago." "Do you miss your home?" I asked, looking around the dark, smoky house. I sure would miss my home if I had to move. And here's a picture of Olive and Clementine talking to the Pilgrim lady, who, remember, just an actor. "Oh no," the Pilgrim lady said. "The New World is the place for us." Then she leaned in her broom to think about it a little bit more. "Well, I miss apples," she said at last. "Back home, we had all different kinds in England. Oh, I'd love to bite into a pippin apple right now, and how I would fancy a splash of cider with my stew, or beer," she said, leaning over to eye Olive and I more closely. "I don't suppose you've got any beer with you, travelers, do you? We've run low." I laughed at her joke. "Our parents wouldn't give us beer," I said. But then I found out she wasn't joking. "What's the matter with them?" she asked. "Don't they love you? All our children drink beer." "For real?" Olive asked. "Of course," said the woman. "You don't think we'd let them drink the water, do you? Look at this." She pointed to a bucket of water beside her. "It's clear. There's nothing in it. That can't be good for a person." "Then what's it for?" Olive asked. The Pilgrim lady pointed to a bowl of dried peas. "Soup. Those peas need to be washed first." Which gave me a great idea. Do you need any help?" I asked. "Around here? Always." The Pilgrim lady wiped her hands on her apron and held out the bowl to me. I took it, and then I picked up the bucket of water too. Then I stuck my head out the door. "Margaret, Margaret," I called down the road. "Come over here." Margaret walked over. Her arms were still folded across her chest, and she squint-eyed me. "Here's a doing thing for you," I said. When I explained, Margaret brightened right up. She sat down on a bench beside the house and began washing the peas, one by one, until those peas gleamed. Olive and I sat down beside her, and the Pilgrim lady came out with some sewing and joined us. There they are, Margaret, Olive, and the Pilgrim lady sewing. I asked the Pilgrim lady if she had any tattoos, which I ask every grown-up if I meet one, because you can never tell who's got some under their clothes. The Pilgrim lady answered no, but she's seen a few of them on the sailors on the Mayflower. Why did you leave anyway?" Margaret asked. The Pilgrim lady told us about how it had been in England. It was a story we had learned in school about how the King of England was bossing his people around with some new church rules, and they didn't like it. But it sounded sadder the way she said it. "Burdensome rules," she called them. "They did not suit us, so we left." Margaret's face sagged at that answer. I knew it reminded her of the 6th graders bossing her around with their new rules next year. I bet Margaret was thinking, "Great, so I should just find a new world to colonize too." Luckily, the butterscotch speckled chicken came over right then and pecked at my sneaker laces so I could change the subject. "What's her name?" I asked the Pilgrim lady. Secretly, I was really hoping the Pilgrim lady would say she hadn't thought of a good name yet, and ask me if I had any suggestions. Then I would get to tell her a great name, one that I saw in the bathroom yesterday, which is where I get all my pet names. It was written on a tube of cream my mom rubbed into her belly each night so her belly wouldn't explode, because she's got a baby in it. The Pilgrim lady and her chicken will be so happy with the new name. Prenatal Stretch. And okay, fine. Olive would know that I was very talented at something, even if I couldn't do Olive talk. So I asked again, does she have a name, the chicken? The Pilgrim lady looked at me as if I just asked her if her chicken had a pair of ice skates. "Isn't she your pet?" I asked. "Pet?" she asked. "Oh no, we don't have the luxury of keeping pets here." "Oh, so you just have her for giving eggs?" I said, which I thought was a little selfish, because I didn't tell the Pilgrim lady though, but I really thought it was selfish. "Eggs, yes," the Pilgrim lady said. "And after that," she pointed over her shoulder at the house, into the stew pot. I jumped up. What? What did you say? You mean you're gonna eat this chicken? Margaret put the bowl of peas down beside her and stared at her. Clementine, you sound just like your mother when she can't finish her sentences. I ignored her. My heart had started pounding really hard, like a fist that was so angry it wanted to punch its way out of my chest. You can't eat this chicken, I cried. I swept out my arms. You can't eat any of them. These chickens are people, you know. The pilgrim lady looked at me as if I had told her a joke. She giggled a little, and then she went back to her sewing. What do you think is in your sandwich today, Clementine? Margaret asked. You eat chickens all the time. I looked down at Pre-Nata Stretch. She was stalking away from me as if she knew what Margaret had just said. I hurried after her and bent down to look her in her little red chicken eye. And then I moved to her other side so I could look at her in the other little red chicken eye. I stared into her eye. I wanted her to know that I was serious. Not anymore, I don't. I promised her, not anymore. I won't eat chicken. Pre-Nata stretched, cocked her head to study me, and she strutted over to join her friends. Olive came up behind me. This is so terrible, I said, without looking back at her, because I was trying not to cry. Look at their faces. These chickens just want to play some chicken games and live in a nice little chicken house with their families. I know it's not the pilgrim lady's fault. She's just an actor, and she's not really going to eat them, but in real life, everyone else does. And a lot of other animals, too. Nalavat Olive, said Olive. I still didn't want to look Olive in the eye, but I turned around to give her a quick side eye. What do you mean, Olive? Not you. Olive, Oliva, Voliva, Goliv, Talava, Olivarian. This one took me a minute. I wiped my face and turned around. You are? Olive nodded. Olive, I don't olive eat olive animals. Oh, I said. I looked back. The chickens had stopped pecking and were staring at us. Their faces looked really, really worried. Me too, I said to Olive. I'm a vegetarian and I don't eat animals. I turned back to the chickens. I mean it, I said, with my pledge hand over my heart. Starting right now, I won't eat chickens. The last place we visited was the Mayflower. It was my really favorite part of the field trip because it smelled like that of a big ship, tar and wood and salt. And there were lots of doing things. It also gave me the great idea of building my own boat when we went to visit my grandparents in Florida next winter. So all I needed was some wood and some tar and a sheet for the sail. One of the sailors told me, well, it's a bit more complicated than that, but you're on the right track, he said. Clementine's talking to the sailor. He rolled up his sleeve to show me his tattoo. But all the time, I was having fun on the Mayflower. Some of my Clementine sections were thinking about that chicken and about the rest of the animals at Plymouth plantation and the animals in the rest of the world. When it was time to eat, we lined up with our partners to get our lunches from the buses, and we brought them back to the picnic area. I opened my lunchbox, but the sight of my chicken sandwich, it made me want to cry again, and I snapped it shut. Mrs. Rice caught my eye and patted the space beside her. I guess she thought I was still worried about the no-eating sound rules. And so she was offering to protect me from those fourth graders, which was so nice of her. Made me wonder what Mrs. Rice had been like as a kid, before her feet grew up and wanted to be strapped into car seats all day long. Had she had it with bossy kids and their rules too? I started to get up to go over there, but then I realized something surprising. I didn't care about the fourth graders and their stupid rules anymore. I'd used up all my caring on my chicken, and there just wasn't any left for the fourth graders. So I waved to Mrs. Rice to thank her, but I shook my head. No, I'm okay. Beside me, Olive tapped my knee and held out her lunchbox. It's vegetarian, she said. I'll share it with you. I saw hummus and pita chips, celery sticks, 2 apples, and a cookie. Even a person with cotton balls for teeth would make noise eating that lunch. Uh-oh. The fourth graders were going to go out of their minds when she took a bite. Everything was crunchy, and I mean everything. Suddenly, even though my teacher was all on the other side of the all the way on the other side of the picnic area, I imagined I heard his voice. I know I can count on you to make Olive feel comfortable on this field trip. I know I can count on you. She heard his voice. Do you think she really heard his voice or just in her head? Let's see. Because I don't think he's on the trip. Thanks, I said to Olive. I took a pita chip, I loaded it with hummus, and then I stood up. I looked over at the harbor, and I imagined for 1 minute what those pilgrims must have thought when they were stepping onto the Mayflower. Finally, we're getting away from all those stupid rules in England. Sure wish I could get on a boat, and I could sail to a new world right now. I'd take Olive with me, and Margaret, and Principal Rice, and anybody else who thought the silent eating rule didn't suit them. Instead, I raised the pita chip to my mouth and chomped down as loud as I could. Crunch, I yelled, in case anyone had missed it. Then I unstuck my tongue from the hummus on the roof of my mouth with a snick so loud it probably sent tidal waves rocking the Mayflower at the dock. The whole entire picnic area went silent. All 100 kids turned to gape at me. The fourth graders looked shocked. The third graders looked really worried. Margaret pulled her jacket over her head as if she couldn't bear to watch. Only Olive didn't seem interested. She snapped a celery stick in half, crunch, and bit it in two. I grabbed a celery stick and crunched so hard the sound echoed off the buildings. Olive took a drink from her juice box, and I fake glugged mine. Glug, 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 glug. Everything Olive did, I did louder. There's a picture of them. And did I show you a picture of all the kids eating lunch outside? There's all the kids eating lunch. Oh my gosh. Waylon was the first person to join me. He stood up and growled like a lion really loud as he gnawed a piece of fruit leather, and then he smacked his lips around it. Maria was next, and you never heard grapes pop so loudly. Pop, pop. And then Joe sloshed his soup like a cement mixer, and then one by one, all my friends came over and joined my team. The who cares how loud you eat team. Look, they're all crunching away. They don't care about the fourth graders. Mrs. Rice stood up at first. I figured I was in trouble for committing the giant crime of embarrassing our school on the field trip. One good thing about getting in trouble in front of the principal, though, at least you can't get sent to the principal. But you will not believe what Principal Rice did next. When she stood up, she looked me right in the eye and raised her hands up over her head in a thumbs up. Oh my gosh, I knew it was a private good job meant for me, but the other kids must thought it was for them too. More and more third graders joined in, snapping their jaws around their sandwiches, snicking and gulping and crunching as loud as they could. Pretty soon, some of the fourth graders got in on it too, and then finally, even the really, really mean ones, who had started the whole stupid no eating noise problem in the first place. Everybody was crunching, and in the end, Olive was the only one eating her lunch like a normal person. She was probably thinking, kids in this new school sure are a bunch of loud eaters, but so what? The thing that mattered most was that if my teacher looked over at her, his newest student looked really comfortable. Olive nudged my elbow, then handed me her second apple. I was just about to take a nice loud bite when I remembered something. I got up and went over to Mrs. Rice. May I go visit the pilgrim lady, Mrs. Rice? Mrs. Rice looked down the road at the village. Sure, take your partner and come right back. Olive and I found her, pulling weeds in her garden. She looked pretty tired, but she perked up when she saw us. Oh, hello. Did you find some beer for me after all? Nope, but we brought you this. Olive and I waved goodbye and left that pilgrim lady gazing at her apple with a wow, I must be dreaming face that could probably be seen back in England. Remember how she told them, remember what she said? She wished she had an apple because they had them back in England. All right, that's the end of chapter 7. Thanks for listening. Tune in for chapter 8, and that's going to be the last chapter of the book. Gotta tune in to see what's gonna happen. All right, see you later. Have a great day.